What's up, guys? It's Chris Hasty here from Empty Pockets Ironworks. As you can see from the title, we are going to be making a dragon skull today. This is something that has been requested in the past. Honestly, it's just a variation of our deer skulls that I make. The template is a one-off. I drew it up last night. After tracing it out, that template was destroyed, so this is the only one of this particular style, unless somebody copies it exactly. And hopefully you enjoy. It's a relatively easy build. You'll see some of the tools that I use throughout the shop. Most shops will have access to most of these tools. And if you don't have a plasma, I would assume that with a little creative effort you could probably cut a lot of this stuff out with a angle grinder. And I have the advent of using the forge. If you don't have access to a forge, a acetylene torch, or even just a vise and a big enough hammer and some willpower will do a lot of what we're going to do today. Again, the material is all 14 gauge. We are going to use a little bit of 3/8 inch round stock hot rolled and some 1/4 inch round stock cold rolled. In our area, cold rolled is the only thing that you can get 1/4 inch in. So as you can see here, I'm using the Jegs Pro Cut 40 plasma cutter. This thing works absolutely fantastic. I've got the template drawn out for not only the skull, but I've got 2 horns and the bottom jaw. Now again, all of these are one-off. I kind of make it up as I go along, so hopefully this works out. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got the part in a hold down tool on the table, and I'm just taking off any of the excess that I couldn't get with the chip hammer. Also, sometimes with a flap disc, 60 or 80 grit, this is a little bit faster than the chip hammer. And if you don't have a whole lot of slag, this is faster that way too. You can also address any shaping issues if one side is a little bit longer. Of course, these were drawn out by hand using just a paper template. And so if you need to make adjustments, now's a good time to do it. After this, we're going to take it over to the bench vise that I've got, the record vise. It's a 6-inch jaw, and any old vise will do, but this one's mounted to a good heavy bench, and we're going to actually do the beginning break points on the skull. If you've watched any of my previous videos or the video with the making of the deer skull, you will see where I actually break it at 2 different points. And from there on the vise, coming up right now, once we get done breaking it, this is where we will do some minor tweaking, and all of the adjustments that you make to the material here will help you in the final shaping. The straighter things are here, the better it will make your life in the future when you go to put it into the forge, or if you're using a torch. You will waste a lot of fuel fighting yourself trying to straighten things back out. So they always say measure twice. There you can see I'm actually using a scribe as a guideline. It will disappear later on, but that guideline kind of lets me know exactly where I placed it so that I'm close. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a perfect opportunity to do any shaping, any abnormalities, anything that might be a little bit off or that you see that you don't like. This is the time to do it before you put it into the forge. Anything that you do in the forge that is slightly off, any abnormalities will be exacerbated when you go to apply heat. Things move a lot easier when it's hot. There's a quick picture of the jaw. I didn't show me forming it. Basically, I just kind of put it into the edge of the vise, hit it in the center with a cold cut chisel, and then basically just drew it together by hand. It's 14 gauge. It in short spans it doesn't bend that easy, but that actually bent pretty easy. Later on we'll use the horn of the anvil. I don't know that I'll show it in the video, but there's a lot of detail work that's done using the horn of the anvil. So here we're just going to stick it directly in, and then we are going to move on to forming the eye sockets. Now this is honestly my favorite part. As you can see, I am using just a 1 7/8" toe hitch ball. I use a 2-inch toe ball with the deer skulls. This one, the eye sockets are actually a little bit more small, a little bit more slanted, so I wanted it to really kind of protrude out. And we're going to be using pipe caps later on to actually make the eyes, just to give it a little bit of extra depth and detail. So there you can see I'm just using a little, I think that's a 20 ounce, 18 or 20 ounce ball peen hammer. I may be wrong, and it's my medium one, but using the ball peen side of the hammer, just basically forming it around. Now here's just a wood block locked into my reed vise, and I kind of skipped forward on this part. I had to film by myself today. My oldest boy usually handles the camera work for me, and he does a fantastic job, but he had a friend over, he was busy, and so Dad had to do it on his own. So there was a lot of editing involved, but basically for effect I didn't wet the block down, which makes it flame and it looks really cool. The kids really like it when I do feathers and stuff that way, but you can dunk the block in a 5-gallon bucket. But here all I'm doing is using a rounded chisel or a punch that I have redone the end on. It's just kind of a dimple die basically, and I'm just knocking details, as you can see there, into the top of the skull to add a little bit more depth. Now here, using the step on one of my anvils, I'm going to use a straight peen hammer, and I'm going to start curving those horn segments. And after you've got them started, then you can work on rolling them over, and really no need for explanation. You'll see in the next few moments of video how I continue to work those after pulling them in and out of the forge. So a little back history. At the beginning of the video you've seen another dragon skull. You actually seen another entire dragon. That is the first dragon that I made, called Merida. Lovingly, I think this one is going to be called Maleficent, and hopefully I don't get sued for that, but what's in a name, right? Anyway, this one with the horns, I wanted to do something a little bit different. The other dragon that you've seen, we actually take to all of our shows, indoor, outdoor, farmers markets. She weighs about 140 pounds, and she's kind of special to us. The wife and I combined, when we got married, she had 2 kids, I had 2, and all boys, and we decided to have another. And long story short, if it was going to be a girl, we was going to name her Merida. And Disney movies and that sort of thing holds a special place with us, as we have kids, and I grew up watching Disney movies and that sort of thing, and the name just stuck, and that's what we was going to name it if we had a little girl. And instead, as fate would have it, we ended up not having a little girl. We had another little boy. So we have 5 boys in the household. And honestly, I wouldn't change it for the world. So later on, when I made my first dragon skull, the kids actually was like, "Hey, you should make the entire dragon." And so we continued on, and that's what we did. And as you've seen at the beginning of the video, she is quite imposing. And I believe it was actually my wife that came up with the idea of naming her Merida. And so we joke to the boys that that's their sister, and they think it's hilarious. But that dragon has been very, very popular. It has become somewhat of a local celebrity in our community. We, like I said, include it in every market, and we do things that involve the dragon, like selfies with the dragon. We use it for drawings and that sort of thing with our company, Empty Pockets Ironworks. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So back to the video here, you can see we've got our parts ready for assembly. Everything is still pretty rough. Basically, there you can see I tacked one horn on. There is going to be some adjustment that needs to be done. But after you position them where you like, or where I like, and then it's just a matter of welding them on. And then later on, I'm going to use the same technique that I use on the deer skulls with the spatter with the MIG, and add some texture and depth. And of course we're going to add teeth. That's where the 3/8 and the 1/4 inch rod comes in. And not only that, but the eyes and the bottom jaw. So stay with us. I know this is kind of a long video compared to what I normally do, but we're utilizing new software. I bought a very new to me editing suite, and we're trying to learn, so there's a lot of transitions. There might be some bugginess in it, and this was really kind of a daunting video to undertake as far as using new software that I've never used before. Also, the music that you hear throughout that is probably annoying you completely right now is a track that I made myself. And a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a musician. I've played guitar now since I was 13. I'm 36 now. So I have what I'd like to think is a musical ear, and I'm somewhat computer savvy. So I actually made with some of the new software the intro song and the music that you hear playing in the background. So back to what we're doing here. Now I'm tacking on the jaw. You can see where I use the pipe caps. You can pick those up at almost any weld store. All they are is for fencing, the caps that are put on top. I know I didn't make the entire thing myself, boo-hoo, but you know what, I didn't roll out the sheet metal either, so you can't get me on that one. And so after that, we've got the bottom jaw on. Kind of looks like a jacked up horse right now, but I promise you it will look pretty cool after a while. So here you can see what I'm using for the teeth. This is 2 pieces of 3/8 inch round stock and then the 1/4 inch. Basically I just stick them in the width, or the depth I guess I should say, of the jaw plates, and then bend them over slightly. There is no exact science to this. I mean, you can use whatever and make them however you like as far as the teeth are concerned. Essentially I'm just going to take, I'm kind of showing here the contour. I'm just going to lock it into the vise. I'm going to use a cutoff wheel on the 3/8, and I'm just going to use a flap disc on the rest of them to shape, and just to kind of give them that menacing pointy look. But we'll skip forward here, and then we'll get them tacked on. I didn't realize that I skipped that far forward. I actually didn't show any of the tacking the teeth on, but there they are in place, and you got to see an underside view of the dragon. Now here I'm utilizing my spackle technique, and it works really well. People have asked me in the past, like, how do you do that? You know, what do you set the welder on? Honestly, I just leave it set exactly where I normally weld at, and I've been a welder now for, I don't know, over 20 years. And so breaking yourself of habits and trying to hold a good beat is sometimes kind of hard, but essentially what I do is I hold the cup about 3/8 of an inch away from the material, and then I just do kind of a long loop pattern with it, and you'll feel it try to grab and stick, and I'm sure it's not that great on the welder, but it works, and you can concentrate more in certain areas. Now here, after all the detail work, I'm just kind of buffing some of it out, and then we're going to do what's called brassing. After I knock off a lot of the scale here, we're going to take it back over to the forge, and we're going to get the skull itself hot. I don't know that I'll actually show it in the forge, but in fact, I think video editing wise, this has actually got a little bit of the brassing on it. You can see kind of the gold color. As I said earlier, this is new editing software, so forgive me if there's any jumps or jitters in the format itself. It should be okay though. I think coming up here you'll actually see part of the brassing, and essentially all you do is you get the material up to almost like a blue heat, which is 800 to 1000 degrees, and using just a standard brass brush you can brush over the material, and the brass itself actually transfers to the material that you're brushing on. I like to do it around the front of the skull. It looks really cool. And then after a little bit of cleanup, and then of course the clear coat, the colors really stand out. Now this piece I want it to stand on its own on a table, and if the person, if it's bought, wants to hang it, I also wanted it to be able to be hung, so I used just another piece of 3/8 inch rod. Used one of my jigs. I didn't quite get it hot enough, probably kind of in a hurry here, but normally that's easier to bend. The jig itself normally works great, but after I get this off here, you can see we just kind of made a loop, and then I'll break that into the appropriate position. There you can see I've already got it tacked onto the bottom of the skull. We'll weld that in place, and then this build is pretty much done. Now I want to take the time here to thank each and every one of you for spending this wow, over 20-minute long video with me. If you skipped to this part, then I'm telling you thank you now anyway. And I hope you enjoyed. This is, like I said, a new format. We're learning, and hopefully this will allow us to make videos faster and more appealing. So here's a couple of finished slides. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/EP Ironworks. We also have links to our Instagram page there. We do take custom orders, and look for pictures of this bad boy in the future. And who knows, you see us at a show, maybe it can be yours. Thanks again.